Hey everyone, and welcome to the 5th installment of the Canon Collector's Star Wars Canon Timeline Binge. Today we'll be checking out the 2017 comic, Darth Maul. This series was written by Cullen Bunn, with art by Luke Ross, published by Marvel Comics. I was able to get my copy of this series through my subscription with Amazon Prime. If you're new and interested in seeing how this review fits into the rest of my Star Wars Canon Timeline Binge, make sure to go check out the explainer video we posted on this channel. Remember, like all of our other videos, this video will be spoiler heavy, not just for this comic series, but for the majority of the Star Wars canon. You've been warned. If you haven't read this comic series and you want to get caught up on the details of the story, make sure to go check out our plot summary video. So let's dive into 2017's Darth Maul comic. So this comic series was about 5 issues long, and it really was a fun way to spend an hour, but it didn't necessarily captivate me like a lot of the other Star Wars material that we've already been through and a lot of the other comic books in general that I've read. Now, I'm not saying that this series is bad, but it's definitely an action-driven series, and I tend to gravitate more towards story-driven comic series. The plot felt slightly simplistic. I felt like I knew exactly where this plot was gonna go before they even got there. There really wasn't anything that sort of surprised me within this comic. Now, I understand that this is a smaller story, and I don't necessarily need world-changing events to occur, and I don't even necessarily think that I would have wanted the Jedi Padawan in this story to say, turn to the dark side, but I really did want something a little more unexpected than what we got. It was a fairly straightforward adventure, but there wasn't really anything that grabbed me like some of these other comic series that I've read. As well, the art style was fine, but it didn't blow me away either. It felt like a very standard comic book art style, and while that can be really fun and nostalgic, it's not always what I'm looking for in a story that doesn't necessarily pull me in. So some of the things I did like from this comic book was the actual writing and a lot of the dialogue that the writer chose to use. It really did feel like Maul, and I could hear Sam Witwer's voice in most of the dialogue that I was reading in this comic. I think it was really smart of them to use more of an inner narration from Maul, almost like a monologue throughout the comic series. Darth Maul is a man of very few words, at least before we see him in the Clone Wars, so I thought that this was a good way to get a lot of this exposition out and to really peel the curtain back and see what's going on within Darth Maul's head. I really do like that we got to see more of Maul and Darth Sidious' relationship. It was very cool to see a lot of their dynamics because we definitely didn't get enough in episode 1. Darth Maul was really trying to conceal a lot of what he does throughout this comic series from his master. And I thought that was good because you really get a sense that Darth Maul fears Darth Sidious more than he respects him. These two clearly have different ideas of how to proceed with the future and their overall goals. I think that this is something we're going to see throughout these sort of Sith relationships. It was also fun to see a more dark take on Star Wars. We haven't really gotten that yet in our timeline, and it's really fun to kind of dive into the underworld. There's a lot of great references in this book, but it does feel like this was very specifically made for Clone Wars and Rebels fans. But it does make sense. The majority of what we've seen from Darth Maul in canon has been from those two animated shows. Overall, I thought that this comic was good, but it didn't completely blow me away. It's a fun read if you're just looking to kill some time, or if you really like action-based comic series. As well, if you're a Darth Maul or Cad Bane fan, this is probably something for you. If you're picking up this comic looking for something else though, this might not be for you. I really do hope that down the road we're going to get some more Darth Maul material that might explain even more of his backstory. So there aren't too many connections to the past material that we've already experienced in this timeline binge. However, there are some cool references and small tie-ins to future stories specifically revolving around Darth Maul. Some of these references tend to be a little on the nose, but for the most part, I'm very happy to see that they were included within this comic series. In this comic, we get a good look at Darth Maul's ship, the Scimitar, as well as his dark eye probe droids, which are both featured in Episode 1, The Phantom Menace. Darth Maul also has a line in the story, "My life ends only when my rage has been vented," when my need for vengeance is satisfied, it will be a long life. This is most likely referring to his return in the Clone Wars animated series after being cut in half in Episode 1 by Obi-Wan Kenobi. This also foreshadows Obi-Wan and Darth Maul's duel on Tatooine, which we see in the animated series Rebels. We get another Rebels Easter egg. In this story, Maul meditates, recalling a time when his master Darth Sidious took him to Malachor to learn of a great slaughtering of ancient Sith by the Jedi. We get a great shot of the temple on Malachor, which is prominently featured in the first episodes in which Darth Maul appear in the series Rebels. This tie-in was really cool, showing that Darth Maul had some previous experience with Malachor. This scene felt a little randomly placed within this story, but it does do a good job at giving us some backstory to Darth Maul, showing that Darth Sidious truly brainwashed him into believing that the Jedi had wronged the Sith. It gives a lot of credence to why Maul is looking for vengeance and why he hates the Jedi so deeply. Because this is a very dark side heavy story, we get a lot of characters from the underworld. Cad Bane and Aurra Sing, who are prominently featured in the Clone Wars, are also featured characters in this story. We see some Trandoshans and IG droids, which have been predominantly featured throughout Star Wars canon. As well, we also get a look at the Pikes and Black Sun, who were both featured in the Clone Wars animated series and are also featured in Solo, a Star Wars story. As well, if you look really closely at this art, you can see another Clone Wars character, everybody's favorite pirate, Hondo Ohnaka. Like I've said, there aren't many connections to the stories that we've already experienced in canon, but some of these will come into play in the future. We'll be discussing more about this as we experience more of those stories in this timeline binge. So this is our 5th entry into the canon timeline binge. This comic series acts very similar to the other comic series that we've had in this series. It's a nice palate cleanser and a fun small adventure, but there's not a whole lot of connective tissue to everything else that we've seen in canon so far. There are going to be a lot of connections moving forward, so it'll be more interesting to see those other pieces of canon and then think about this story once we get there a little bit later on. This is our first look at the dark side though in our canon timeline binge. We've had it just a touch throughout some other stories, but this is the first one where we actually really focus on some dark side characters. For that element, it was definitely refreshing. Coming off of the series of comics featuring Yoda, this was a really stark contrast, and I thought that that in itself was a lot of fun. Without a doubt, this comic series is increasing my anticipation to getting to Episode 1, The Phantom Menace. In the other stories that we've read, we've gotten to meet the heroes of Episode 1, and it was great to now meet our villains. While this story and the other stories that we've read so far have gotten me excited to dive into Episode 1, this one was a little different than the other entries into the series. The other stories really made me invest in the actual story that I was experiencing. This comic series, however, really didn't have me that excited for this actual story. It felt like a really nice trailer for what we're about to see in canon. Episode 1, Clone Wars, and Rebels. I'm not saying that that's necessarily bad, but I do appreciate when these entries in canon can still make me invested in the story that they're trying to tell at that time, while also getting me excited for other pieces of canon. I don't think that I would change my placement of the comic though. It really makes sense timeline-wise to put this here, and it is a nice tease for what we're gonna see in canon later on. But I have seen Clone Wars and Rebels, and I just think that this comic series would have lacked a lot if I didn't have that knowledge. There's a lot of cool Easter eggs and references to those animated shows, so if you're not necessarily familiar going into this comic book, I don't think you'll remember them when you see them again in those pieces of animation. Those references to the animated shows are definitely what kept me somewhat invested into this comic series. This was a very nice tease at Darth Maul, and I am really excited to experience all of his other stories in canon. So thank you guys for checking out this story with me. I am sure that I missed a bunch of stuff in this review, so please, in the comments below, make sure to let me know of all of the Easter eggs and references that I missed, and what I should be looking out for as we continue on this Canon Timeline binge. Make sure to go check out our Instagram page at Canon Collector. We're posting a bunch of cool Star Wars playlists and viewing orders for you guys, and we would love to make one just for you. If you've enjoyed this video, make sure to give us a like. And if you'd like to see more of my Star Wars Canon Timeline reviews and plot summaries, make sure to subscribe to our channel. Thank you guys again for checking out the video, and remember, may the spires keep you, and may the Force be with you.